It all started with whispers, quiet ones at first, spreading through the church halls and social media comments. People were confused, asking the same question again and again. Where is Bishop Joel Tudman? A man who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Bishop T.D. Jakes suddenly disappeared from the spotlight without a single word. No farewell, no explanation, just silence. You won't believe how fast that silence turned into noise. Some said he had stepped away for personal reasons. Others believe there was tension behind closed doors. But let me tell you, this is where it gets interesting. Because what looked like a simple disappearance was actually the beginning of one of the most shocking chapters in his life. Bishop Tudman had always been known for his fiery sermons, his powerful energy, and his ability to touch people's hearts. But one day, everything just stopped. His name vanished from event lists. His face was gone from official pages, and even his followers started to question what really happened. This wasn't the kind of silence people expected from a man who was once so full of words. The craziest part, no one seemed to have a clear answer. People started saying things, sharing rumors, building stories out of guesses. And in that cloud of confusion, Bishop Tudman's name became the center of controversy. But here's the shocking part. While the world was busy talking, Bishop Tudman said nothing. Not a single post, not a single appearance. It was as if he had stepped out of the world completely. This is how destiny sometimes works. It takes you away from everything familiar just to show you who you really are. Behind the scenes, he was going through something deeper than anyone could see. While others were debating his future, he was quietly fighting his own storm. What makes this story different? It wasn't about failure. It was about preparation. People thought his silence meant defeat, but that silence was sacred. It was a time when God was stripping away everything that wasn't meant for the next chapter of his life. The more people doubted him, the more he found strength in that hidden season. Let me tell you, every great comeback starts with a quiet breakdown. And Bishop Tudman was right in the middle of his. You won't believe how that silence shaped his next move. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Days turned into weeks, and weeks slowly turned into months. Bishop Joel Tudman remained unseen, unheard, and untouched by the outside world. For a man who once stood before thousands, the silence was louder than ever. People kept waiting for a statement, a sermon, even a single word, but nothing came. You won't believe how strange it felt to see his social media completely still, like time had frozen. Let me tell you, this wasn't just a break. It was a burial of his old self. The man the world once knew was being broken piece by piece so something stronger could rise again. Behind the scenes, Bishop Tudman was walking through his own wilderness. No cameras, no microphones, no followers, just him and his thoughts. This is how destiny tests you. It removes the noise so you can hear what truly matters. There were nights he couldn't sleep, nights filled with questions and tears. But even in that pain, there was purpose. He began to see that what looked like rejection was really redirection. The craziest part, while everyone thought he was finished, he was actually being rebuilt. But here's the shocking part. During those quiet months, something started to stir in his spirit again. He began to write, to pray, and to reflect on what went wrong. Every disappointment became a lesson. Every betrayal became a teacher. This is where it gets interesting because what was meant to destroy him was secretly training him for the next stage. He realized that God wasn't punishing him. He was preparing him. The silence wasn't his end. It was his classroom. People close to him later said that Bishop Tudman spent hours reading scripture, journaling, and meditating on what God was showing him. No spotlight, no crowd, no praise, just raw honesty with himself. You won't believe how that kind of stillness changes a person. When the noise fades and the applause stops, you either fall apart or find your faith again. And Bishop Tudman chose faith. He started to understand that sometimes the only way up is to first fall down. What makes this story different is that his comeback didn't start with a plan. It started with surrender. He stopped fighting for his platform and started fighting for his peace. In that surrender, something powerful was born. A new strength, a deeper voice, a clearer purpose. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and little did anyone know Bishop Tudman was about to rise again. But this time with a story that would shake everyone who ever doubted him. It was a quiet evening when the news broke. Bishop Joel Tudman was returning to the pulpit. At first, no one believed it. After all those months of silence, it sounded like just another rumor. But when the church lights came on and his name appeared on the event list, People knew it was real. The atmosphere was electric. Crowds started gathering long before the doors opened. You won't believe how many people came, not just to hear him preach, but to witness a man rise from what everyone thought was his ending. Let me tell you, this is how destiny unfolds. It waits until the world stops watching, then shows up with something unforgettable. As he walked toward the stage, you could feel the weight of his journey in every step. It wasn't the same confident Bishop Tudman people remembered. It was someone deeper, wiser, and stronger. When he finally took the microphone, the crowd went silent. For a few seconds, there were no words, just emotion. And then he said in a calm but powerful voice, "I didn't come back to prove anyone wrong. I came back to prove that God is still right." But here's the shocking part. He didn't preach about revenge. He preached about redemption. The man who once stood broken was now speaking life into the very people who had once questioned him. The craziest part, you could see tears in the audience, people weeping, hands raised, hearts breaking open. It wasn't just a sermon. It was a moment of transformation. This is where it gets interesting because his return wasn't about fame or validation. It was about purpose. Every word he spoke carried the weight of his silence. Every pause reminded people of the pain he had survived. And yet, instead of bitterness, there was gratitude. Bishop Tudman thanked God for the season of loss because it taught him how to truly win. As he continued to speak, the energy in the room shifted. People who came out of curiosity were now standing in awe. What makes this story different? It wasn't just a comeback story. It was a spiritual awakening. Destiny took an unexpected turn that night. The same stage that once felt like a reminder of his fall became the place of his resurrection. You won't believe how emotional that moment became. People hugged, cried, and prayed like never before. It was more than a sermon. It was history being rewritten right in front of their eyes. When the service ended, no one wanted to leave. They had witnessed something divine, something that no controversy could ever destroy. Bishop Tudman didn't just return. He reclaimed his purpose. And while the world called it a comeback, he called it grace. After that unforgettable night, everything began to change. Bishop Joel Tudman wasn't just back. He was different. The same man who had once vanished in silence now carried a message that reached far beyond church walls. He started a movement called the Rebuild, a vision born from his pain. You won't believe how quickly it spread. People from all over began sharing how his story gave them hope to rebuild their own lives. Let me tell you, this is how true purpose works. It rises from the ashes of your lowest moments. The Rebuild movement became more than just sermons. It was mentorship, healing, and faith in action. Bishop Tudman spoke about the importance of mental health, forgiveness, and inner strength, topics most leaders avoided. What makes this story different? He didn't hide his scars. He used them to help others heal. The same silence that once broke him had